to Introduction to Aerodynamic Objects, Tutorial 5, Get Ready to Fly. And in this we're going to add a wing to the weather vane we created in the previous tutorial and understand how to create lift and how to move the centre of mass to achieve a stable aircraft. Our objectives: we are going to add a wing to the weather vane to make it into an aircraft-like configuration. Then we're going to set the aircraft centre of mass by adding a marker object and associating this with a script that runs on the aircraft that moves the centre of mass depending on where you put the marker. Then we're going to run the simulation, run the game, and then adjust the centre of mass position to achieve a stable flight. And then lastly, we're going to change the pitch angle of the horizontal stabilizer to balance the aircraft so it flies at positive lift. This is our scene diagram for our aircraft. It's actually not a lot different to the weather vane. All we have now is an extra object on the end, which is our wing, and it's exactly the same format as the vertical and horizontal stabilizers, and they're all applying their forces to a centre of gravity on what's called now the glider. We've got a centre of gravity symbol marked on our aircraft, and this is important because we now have a script, and depending on where we put our centre of gravity marker, that script will move the centre of gravity to be in the place where we put it. And when you come to setting up aircraft, getting centres of gravity in the right place is an important task you have to get used to doing. So here we are in Unity. You'll be pleased to hear that there's a minimum amount of setting up for this tutorial. In fact, if you take the finishing point of tutorial 4 and save it as tutorial 5, that's where you need to start. So this is the model we had last time. So we've got our weather vane with its vertical and horizontal stabilizers and a pivot point in the middle. And what we're going to do is, to start turning this into aircraft, we need a wing. So again, being lazy, rather than starting from scratch, I'm just going to do Control D to duplicate the tailplane, horizontal stabilizer, and I'm going to call that wing. And then I'm going to hit W or the move tool there, and I'm just going to drag the wing somewhere over there. Okay, so it looks a bit missile-like, so let's make it a bit bigger. I'm going to hit R or rescale, and I'm going to give it a bit more span and a bit more chord. How's that look? That looks okay. Great, so we've got ourselves a wing and we've got our stabilizing surfaces. Something we need to do is because we're going to be setting the center of gravity exactly, we need to make sure we get rid of any physical colliders. And a top tip for working with the objects is, if you don't know this already, if you hold Control down and select multiple objects, you can edit them all at the same time. And in fact, in the last tutorial, when I added the sphere collider for these surfaces, I didn't tell it to be a trigger, and that didn't matter in the previous tutorial, but it does in this one because we want to make sure that we don't have any other physical colliders on this object, so we get the center of gravity in the right place. Okay, so that's all set up, and well, let's give it a go, see what it does. Okay, so it's static in the wind. Let's get the wind up and change the elevation of the wind. And it kind of works. It's a bit sluggish, but it kind of points into the wind. It does something slightly funny. It doesn't quite point exactly into the wind. So as you might expect, when we've added this wing on the front, it's actually slightly destabilizing because this big lift arrow is in front of the pivot point. So as the angle increases, you get more lift at the front. So this thing's sort of coming at a rather unhappy balance point, which isn't pointing straight into the wind. And really what we're going to do in this tutorial is look about how you set the balance point of an aircraft by moving the center of mass around. Okay, so let's get rid of that bearing. We don't need that anymore, so I'm just actually going to delete it. And what we're going to do is add on a marker, which we're going to use from a bit of code to set the center of mass of our aircraft. So if you go to the prefabs directory of the tutorials, you'll find something on there called center of mass marker, and you've got to drag it in and drop it in just beneath rod. and there it appears at 0, 0, 0, and that is our centre of mass marker. So what I'm going to do is drag it somewhere really far forward as a starting point. That's just some graphics, but what we actually want to do now is have a little bit of code, and what that does, we'll take that position, and then it will the centre of gravity of the rod will then be moved, centre of mass of the rod will be moved to the position of that. So on this object here, I'm going to do add components, and what we want here is a script called Aircraft Manager, and it's Aircraft Manager Tutorial 5, and it's asking for a centre of mass marker. So if we drag that in there, so what will happen now is that the centre of mass of this object will be changed to wherever the position of that is. So let's try running that. And if we now look at the wind again, let's lock it so it's always there. If we now change the elevation of the wind, you notice now it always points directly into the wind, wherever the wind's coming from. So we've got a forward centre of gravity, and the wing is now, because it's behind the centre of gravity, it's actually making it extra stable. So whichever direction the wind comes from, it'll point into it. If we go back to the scene view, we can dynamically move the centre of mass. So if I now drag it backwards and put it here, and now if I change the wind direction, you can see now it doesn't like that, and it's starting to flip over because now the aircraft is unstable. We've got this great big wing in front of the centre of gravity, and that's cancelling out the effect of the tail behind. So the job of setting up an aircraft to fly well is about setting the centre of gravity in the right place so the aircraft is just sufficiently stable that it flies as you want it to. So the next part of setting up our aircraft is to make it so that it balances at a positive lift. And what we saw before with the weather vane, it just points into the wind, and if this wing is pointing straight into the wind, it's not generating any lift. So what we want it to do is we want it to swing round till it's pointing into the wind, but we want it pointing so there's a slight positive angle of attack so that the wing is lifting. And it sounds a difficult thing to do, but actually all we have to do is change the angle of this horizontal surface, so we bend it or twist it a little bit about the axis, and that means when the thing settles down, it should be such a way that the wing is at an angle of attack. So what we want to be able to do is just the angle of the horizontal stabilizer. And so here we are, if we select the horizontal stabilizer, just to make things a little bit more interesting, we've already rotated it around 90 here. So if we actually try and rotate it here, we've actually got two rotations in the same place. So one of the advantages of having a hierarchy like this, if we take a transform with a clean set of rotations, we now know that if we rotate it around Y here, the green axis, that should rotate it in pitch. So that is twisting it up, this one is twisting it down. So if we want the wing to balance at a positive angle of attack, if we set the tail plane like that, what that's going to be doing is pushing down on the tail, and that's going to be lifting the nose up. So in theory, when this balances, it should be flying along with the wing at a positive angle of attack. Let's see if that works. Okay, that looks promising. So this is now balanced, and what's happened because of the angle of the tail is now balanced at a positive angle. So we've got a massive green amount of lift there, so that's brilliant. So it shows it's working. In fact, that's probably too much, so let's reduce the angle a little bit, and as I change the angle of the tail, you can see the balance angle of attack is slowly reducing. And this is a true aerodynamic balance, because if I now vary the angle of the wind, the thing rebalances at the same angle of attack. So it's nothing to do with gravity or anything else. Let's do it the other way. So this is balancing at a positive angle of attack. So the aircraft's actually climbing here, so it could be doing part of a loop of the loop, but that angle of attack is set by the angle I set of the tailplane. And if I make the tailplane go the other way, it'll trim at a negative angle of attack. So if we wanted to fly upside down, we could fly like that. Great. So what we've seen there is by adjusting the center of gravity position, we can make the aircraft stable in pitch, and by adjusting the angle of the horizontal stabilizer, we can make it so that when it balances with the wing at a positive angle of attack. And those are the criteria we need to make an aircraft. So in the next tutorial, we're going to get this thing off its training wheels, in fact it's off its training gimbal, and allow it to fly in free flight.